Ned, where were you born?
Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 1940.
Okay. What was your schooling?
Went to grade school and all through high school and 1 year of college at Montana State in Bozeman, Montana. And then I did the smartest thing I ever did in my life, thanks to encouragement and advice of my father. I went to apply to the Art Center School of Design in Los Angeles. Didn't have much confidence in myself, wasn't sure. And my dad said, if you're going to go to art school, go to the very best you can. And to my surprise, I got accepted. And then I was eligible for a scholarship and got a scholarship.
How many years were you there in Montana?
How many years? We moved there when I was 4, 1944, and then I left in 1960. I was just really lucky to be raised in Bozeman, beautiful mountain valley, no crime, could come and go as we please. Yeah, it was a great childhood. It was very fond memories. Beautiful area.
You said you did illustration.
Yeah.
What was it? How did that go, and how did you get into that versus dropping right into fine art? How was it different then?
Well, I really wasn't exposed to much fine art because in Montana there was maybe 2 artists that people knew about. One was Charlie Russell, and there was another one. Gosh, I can't even think of his name now, but there just wasn't much. And I knew more about illustration and Norman Rockwell and people like that. And I loved to draw, excuse me, and I made drawings in grade school, and I was a cartoonist. And so I kind of naturally went to that because I loved, in those days, it was just past the golden age of illustration. Yeah. Most of the illustration then was probably better than a lot of the fine arts. Yeah. It was just beautiful. And so I decided I wanted to become an illustrator. Yeah.
Where did you go to be an illustrator?
Went to Art Center, majored in illustration and graduated, and then got out, and then I was freelancing, and once you graduated from Art Center, was open up a lot of doors.
Did you want to go to New York, or is that?
In those days, it was quality of life was important. I love the mountains. I like hiking, the outdoors, and the idea of going to New York and living in a big city, I thought maybe I could do it from living in the Bay Area.
Yeah. How many years did you do illustration?
Oh gosh, all told from say 1964 to 1980 was 20. Was that not 20? How many years? But and in between, I did odd jobs. I was a laborer, I was a carpenter, did whatever I could to survive.
You worked for Disney, you said too?
That was later. That was maybe just 15 years ago. I had a chance to do some work for them. I had just gone through a divorce, and I was in debt, and a good friend of mine was one of their top artists, and he says, I was really trying to get myself out of a hole, and he told me they could really use me down there. So I went down there, and it was like going from being a pauper to a prince overnight. They really treated me good.
I did,
yeah.
And you said you have this ability that you discovered.
Oh yeah, I couldn't hit a curveball. Never knew why. It was very frustrating when I was younger, and I had no idea. What I'm talking about is I don't have any depth perception, and I didn't know it until I got into even after art school. But even in art school, perspective class, the teacher never gave an A to anybody, and I went in there and I put in these really complex, difficult drawings in 3-point perspective, and for the most part, eyeballed it. And Mother Nature made up for me where I normally couldn't see. Everything was flat to me. My mind made things up. So I'm sort of an idiot, savant draftsman.
That was a big plus, I bet.
And it's helped a lot because it enabled me to do a lot of things. And with the Disney was with Imagineering, where I was drawing complicated street scenes and having to transfer almost in a way building the park myself. It was fascinating.
But they wanted to keep you there.
Yeah, I could have worked there full time, but they just flew me back and forth and give me these great assignments and paid me a lot of money. And even the last 2 big jobs they had, they called me up to do them. Not that there was people down there that were better than me. That's all they did was these concept work.
Yeah.
But I think I got along with everybody. I did what they asked me to do, and I met the deadlines.
Yeah.
That really helped.
Yeah, right.
And I'm good looking too.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
Sip some coffee if you want.
It goes without saying.
What led you to fine art? What was the what is the series of events, or is it one thing? Did you meet an artist or how did that happen?
Well, when I was doing illustration, because I always loved fine art, and I had my eye on good painters and landscape and figure work, people I admired, read in the art magazines, and I thought I was going to be probably doing illustration all my life, but then kind of illustration started going more to photography and airbrush, and I had seen some of these Western shows where people were displaying art and doing the kind of the same thing, only they were doing more what they wanted to do. And I thought, that's pretty neat. And I got started in some of those Western shows.
About how old were you then when you started?
It was 1980. I guess I was about 38, 40.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was great because the Western art was just taking off then. And people, you could sell a 2-legged horse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
You know what a 2-legged horse is?
2-legged one. Fun to ride.
Where have you traveled, or what are some of your favorite places that you like to go back from time to time? Because I know you traveled to a ton of places.
I've always liked to travel. I think a lot of it because I was raised in Montana and had the freedom, could go anywhere as I want. Didn't have to worry. And I don't know, my sister's the same way. She's puts cruises and trips together for people. So I don't know where that came from exactly. Could be part Hungarian,
Could be.
like to keep running away.
The German part, though.
But yeah, but I've been all over the world, and I love it. And I do paintings, I get material, so get the best of both worlds. Pretty nice.
Do you have some fond memories of your travels? Anything specifically that sticks out? I know you have some funny stories.
Can't tell them all on
No, I know.
No.
But,
yeah, I've gone to Mexico and Guatemala for 35 years because it was cheap, colorful, beautiful, exotic. I just loved it. And I've gone to India recently, China twice. I love Norway. I like exotic. Most artists like that kind of thing. Neat, harbors.
Yeah, more rustic.
Yeah.
Better.
How do you see the representation for artists in the future change? Versus, is it going to be still in the galleries, you think, or the internet is going to play a bigger and bigger role, or how do you see that?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure I'm the best person to ask for that. I'm a little bit into the internet and some digital stuff. I imagine it's going to get better. It'll pick up. It seems to be. It's just I don't know how it's changed. I haven't seen any figures on it, but I hear what collectors, if they don't know the artist or if they know his work, it's kind of hard for them to trust what they're getting on the internet. So that was I don't know if that's so much of an issue anymore. Yeah.
Do you think it's important to work from direct observation, and why?
Yeah, I think it is, because you connect with it emotionally, either doing from live portrait or figures in the studio. You can understand how light affects color, and outside, obviously. I was trained as an illustrator, trained to use photos, and I still do a lot of it. But the key for me was starting to paint outside. I learned about color and light, and it was fun. I loved the outdoors.
How did that come about? Painting outside.
Painting outdoors. I had some friends that did. I got accepted into this real neat art show called the Northwest Rendezvous Show. And the week before the show, all the guys and gals would get together and paint outside. So then when I got in, there was Jim Wilcox there, Clyde Aspavig, John Encinius, people, great landscape painters so I went and started painting with them. Very humbling experience with those, but I had a good friend that said, if you want to get anywhere in the art world, you have to be willing to make a fool out of yourself. So and men find that easier than women probably. So I did that, and I started going on painting trips with some of these people, and painting outside. It was, and very helpful, get a lot of good advice and inspiration. It's like anything, just being able to paint around that kind of talent. It's like playing tennis. You only get as good as your people you're playing with. So just showing and being with those people helped elevate my own.
Yeah. Who are some of the deceased artists that you have always kind of looked up to, especially when you started painting? I mean, fine art, some fine artists.
Yeah, the typical ones that most painters do: Sorolla, Sargent, Zorn, a lot of the Russian painters, Italian painters, plus some of the living painters too. There's a whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
What do you think about this new digital media like computers and digital cameras? Do you think it helps the fine artist, or does it tend to, or it can hurt them too?
Well, I think it's like anything. It's in the right hands. Somebody's probably never learned how to draw or paint. Getting into digital could be a problem. But if you already know that, and then doing it, it can really, from what I see, and I haven't done much myself, I'm trying to get into that, you can save a lot of time and do a lot of things with it. I know when I was working for Disney, this was 10, 15 when I started there was two kind of artists. There were those that could draw and paint well, or those that really knew computers. And the people that were really doing the great stuff were those. There were
do you like
some
abstract art today, or overall, or do you think it's just a short-lived fad and the whole big picture, and it will just go away one day? Is it here to stay?
Well, I do like it. I like the good abstract art, things that are nicely textured, designed, rich in color, variety of stuff. There's some beautiful things done, but there's a lot of bad, disturbing things. So there is some good things, and when I teach and when I paint, I employ those things. I try to think abstract when I start my paintings. And I found out, what I mean abstract, that not that when you see mountains, trees, grass, river, literally as mountain, trees, grass, river, but as interesting arrangements of shapes and colors. And once people start thinking that way, seeing kind of abstract, that's when they really start doing nice things.
Okay, so naturally, artists don't tend to start out that way, right?
I think so, and no matter whether you got an abstract, even super tight, loose painting, most of me analyze them. They have an interesting arrangements of shapes and colors, which, may be kind of vague, but I know artists understand what I'm talking about.
You think it's a good time to be a representational painter? And when you started out, were there workshops, or could you seek out, other great artists, or when?
Yeah, there was some of that. There was some of that when I started out, and I do it. I fortunately, because I took workshops from the very best I could find. I took workshops from David LaFell, Richard Schmid, Harley Brown, Ron Lucas, Del Gish, people like that, really accomplished, and that was great. It was lucky. It's good that we had those things. I think even more people good people are teaching now, and I think they probably can't necessarily replace 4 years of concentrated art school, but for those people that can't do that or want to at least get started, at least they're going to get exposed to some really good teachers, and what you're doing here in Tucson is very admirable.
Oh, thank you.
It's really wonderful to see.
Thank you. Do you think that the university programs is a good way to go, or if you want to be a fine artist, what is the approach that artists these days? It's 2011 now, so.
Yeah, I always think of when I started Art Center.
Advice too.
Yeah, I started at Art Center, and I started with other kids, some a little older. They all had majored in art at all the major universities. Stanford, Michigan, Texas, California, Iowa. Majored in art for 4 years. They all had to start over again. They didn't teach them any skills. You just sit there and do your thing. And, there's a lot to be said for that, just being creative, but you need to, if you're going to do whatever you're going to do, you need to have some skills, some quality behind it, and if you don't have that, it shows no matter what you're doing, it's going to show.
Yeah, you have to have the craft down first before you can create art.
I think so. It's like playing a piano. If you don't know the notes, it's going to sound horrible.
Yeah.